Mohammed and I both co-founded eFabless some years ago. My background was very different. I had come out of the actually investment banking world. I retired out of Goldman Sachs. The
Oh,
inspiration for me at the time was just watching innovation and hardware getting harder and harder and harder. So how can you reset things to restore that? And it was my great pleasure through two mutual friends to meet Mohammed, who had the exact same view and brought a real technical capability to make that happen, specifically around the open source. And then we brought it together around community models. So that said, Mohammed, I'll turn over to you and let you also guide the group through the deck.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Victor. I will share the screen here. Okay. Is the slide visible?
yes, we see.
Yep.
We can see them.
Right. Great. Well, thank you, everyone, and thanks, Victor, and thanks for having us here today. I'm, as Mike said, we're the co-founders, and we met together to create the combination of the technical and the business together background together and meld into the open source world and the open innovation world, rather, including open source capabilities. So I'm going to talk today about that eFabless um, has just in general to introduce the concept, and then we will show what the type of community we built and what we've been able to offer to the community or not, in multiple directions. Um, there may be a couple of slides that will have dollar numbers on it, but the objective of that, to be clear, is the message about how a barrier was reduced. It's not I don't want it to be perceived as we're doing a marketing pitch here. I will start from there. So as so eFabless, we recognize ourselves as the community, and we offer the community of developers and designers and product and software developers, etc., capabilities to develop products. So our target audience is typically people who develop products. And the quick look on the company. So we're founded in 2014. We have provided solutions that are very cost effective for product companies to actually endeavor into the custom ASIC. We have 60 plus customers across commercial and academic spectrum. Our team is relatively small. It's 22 people. We have almost, actually more than 11,000 community members now, and 20 plus industry partners. And we are VC funded by the VC funded from New North Ventures, Synopsys, and Global Foundries. So as I mentioned, that we enable product developers that are to build their own custom ASIC. So this is typically something that if you look at the product developers that are smart devices for any application, typically the use for standard ASIC or standard parts is the solution to go to, except for the very, very high volume products like the smartphones and data centers, and so the customization has become attached to the volume, and not viable for anybody that is building a product that is not as popular or would have a demand like the smartphone. So what eFabless, the way it looks compared to the ecosystem outside, is it's a vertical solution that combines the whole picture for the foundry, the EDA, and designs that are available to solve the problem for customers or product developers that want to create their own ASICs. And primarily that's a long tail and the machine learning applications, and I'll cover that a little bit. So if we look at just the general traditional long tail picture, typically the customization lends itself to the left part of the chart here just because of the cost. The cost of development is typically high to think a custom ASIC or custom SoC. And it makes the blue part of this picture the only viable, or it makes more sense there. And that leaves the rest of the products on the spectrum. It could be tens of thousands, as we predict, especially with the direction for right size, power, and compute, and the machine learning applications. It leaves that other side of the spectrum kind of in the corner, that they have to live with the standard products, and they don't use the paintbrush of a custom ASIC as a part of their artistry to produce their products. What we did with our model, which is primarily hinged around the community, is we reduced that cost significantly for everybody. But it fits a lot more on the right-hand side, the orange side of this slide, which is products that have a lower volume that typically wouldn't justify the development cost for custom ASIC. Two things had to happen. One of them is reduction of cost. That's one, but that's not enough. If we want to address or provide product companies to do something, we'd also need to reduce the knowledge barrier and convert the problem into something that they can communicate with and utilize. Because of the number of products, there is an issue of we don't have enough designers, because if you look at that part of the slide, it will extend to too many products, and the design costs are too much, and then it takes too long. So, and this is just an abstract representation of what's happening. And although people can argue that there is innovation in the semiconductor space right now, I would like to say it's clustered around high capital environment. And as you go into process nodes, higher in the node, cost is high, number of possible or capable entities of actually using that technology is lower, and then the number of designers globally goes down, regardless of how many designers in one company or so. So the way we approach this is, was inspired by something that the app stores. And the app stores, people again mention the app stores, and they don't think about what really happened. So what really happened in the app stores, before the app stores, if you wanted to build a software company and product and sell it, it's a big undertaking. You need to find customers, you need to find partners or investors, or it's a very high risk, high complexity endeavor. What the app stores did, they provided a starting point, a development tools, and a business process, and a connection to customers. So they made it easier for people to start and structured their path, as well as put a business model and a business process together, and connection to customers. That led to explosion of the number of people that are able to develop software products, call it apps, and make the free market select which ones are actually being utilized. So our approach is equivalent, just at a high level. We want to simplify the process of chip creation and make it more accessible. So we need to provide a business process, the guardrails for quality, all the aspects that you would think about in developing a semiconductor need to stick, because it's still a semiconductor design and custom chip. So that includes software, includes IP, includes initial software, SoC platform or so. So we're going to talk about that. So we created this path. It's called Chip Ignite, which is one-stop shop. Literally, you're able to design. We give you a template chip. It's called Caravelle here, that is already silicon proven, but the design is available for the user, whether it's a paying customer or not, to be able to design their own piece and put it into the chip and then submit it. And then at the end of the day, because we have a common interface, we get a board. So we call that Chip Ignite. And this is just a high level overview So we provide the starting point, which is it's a RISC-V microcontroller. Literally is capable of doing a lot of functions by itself. And then we provide the tools. We started with an open source EDA flow, and that flow is maintained now as the least common denominator for anyone to be able to start the design. And we provided multiple shapes and forms. However, I call it one size fits all. One of the important things that we did is that we standardized, and regardless of the size of the design that is going to be filled here, we standardize. That means we can increase the level of automation. So this process that is mentioned here, from the time the designer submits their design all the way to go into the foundry, this is not a human-driven process. This is a fully automated process. So we don't have, for example, a tape-out team that does this. And we do aggregate it, but the aggregation here is very different. It's one piece of the steps, by the way. It's not just the whole picture. And then the second part is that it is ready for products. Like it's not only for prototyping. So, and then an important aspect, which as I mentioned earlier, is to abstract the knowledge level. We had a program with Google that we worked with a software group that is coming from a software plus FPGA background. They wanted to be able to compile an RTL to a GDS without stopping. And in our world, in the semiconductor space, typically we're used to optimizing everything until you get to the process entitlement level. If you think about it the same way the GNU compiler works, all of a sudden, a lot of people can actually do it, even if it's a little bit suboptimal. So, and this is something is actually the optimization comes a lot or is attached a lot to the volume, the high volume. So that's why you do that. But if the volume is lower, the features and the economics are different. So we offered this chip ignite path at this number. So this is basically the first, all included, no masks and everything. That's the number. And because of one of the discussions, and we're having with Synopsys, and we're going to be launching soon, is we will be able to augment, like literally staple and add on here on the tool side to provide the additional the package from Synopsys that supports the project, which is going to be a very, very unique approach. We're not going to sell the tools by itself. It's going to have to be attached to that offering as an add-on, which makes it a new business model also that lowers the barrier. Our customers, the commercial customers, mostly product companies, and that's a sign of how we made that progress in terms of simplification. There are some chip companies that use our approach to prototype or maybe develop something for their own customers. One of the things we did, I mentioned Google earlier, is that Google funded some of the manufacturing for in the beginning of our program. That program, we created all the engineering for it, and then Google contributed by funding the runs. And in the mask shot, we have 40 slots, and it showed over time when the funding happens for the manufacturing using the approach with the open source EDA, etc. This is the number. The light purple here represents the number of people that are submitted clean designs ready to go, competing for 40, and it keeps increasing. And when we did this with two foundries, Skywater and Global Foundries, on two different process nodes. Just to have her quickly see the examples of this is to be read there, offline. The examples of the designs that came out of this kind of a program, and this is intended to be visually dense. To see, this is Twitter feed of people sharing their designs together on top of, and talking about them and asking questions. And all these designs, because of that program, were open source. So that means people can take them and rebuild on them and more. So, and people have done a lot of variety of designs, which actually that opens the innovation significantly. One of the things that we applied the community really well on is that we are building a version of the chip ignite aiming for the machine learning applications at inference at the edge. And we believe that in order to do that successfully, we need certain group of IP to be available for the community to use. So we created a call to in the community to design 20 blocks of IP, and we publish specifications for these. And in less than 2.5 months, we have 20 IPs in progress, and they're going to be either taped out end of this month or beginning of June, depending on the complexity of the IP. And we put a process around it. This was an amazing program, and it'd be good to actually, if you have any questions about it, you wouldn't be able to do that fast with an organization, traditional organization, within the captivity of one team, unless you have a large team. And here these teams are individuals versus also some teams are submitting, multiple teams are submitting different choices of the IP. So it is actually a very interesting approach, and we will publish details about it and talk about it, the process, more so than just the outcomes. Another aspect here is that when we built that $10,000 platform, this is an innovation coming from one of our partners, and his name is Matt Venn. He created something called Tiny Tape Out. We took the space that we provide by Chip Ignite, divided into 100 ways. So that makes the $100 cost for him. And then they provided a board, and then you can design a bike. You literally can go with Apple Pay or credit card, get a $300 first 1,000 gates, and then you can add $50 for every additional 1,000. It's amazing what people do with that. So there are people building industrial controllers within that. There are people building small neural networks. There are people just learning. The youngest person that used this was 8 years old, just to give you an idea about the scale. So in summary, just at the community level, this is what 11,000 community members that you can talk to around chip design. We have a total of 1,300 designs that are developed in the open source, by the way, and 600 taped chips. These are actual things over the last 3 years. Now, we applied that significantly in an obvious direction, the workforce development. So with an open source ecosystem, you can make it limitlessly available. It's virtually limitless to available to anyone without any limitations of confidentiality or cost. So I call that the funnel opener. And people sometimes they say, how is that, for eFabless specifically working with, our partners like Synopsys? Actually, the reason they are with us is they're invested in us, is that they see that we are a funnel opener to allow the growth of the customers or the users in a market that they don't typically serve. So just as a flash here, this is an example of some of the universities. We have more than 50 universities around the world that have used the silicon in their tape outs in different ways, for courses, for add-ons, for projects. And typically, there's no concern about legal agreements, so you don't have to spend any time before you start as a professor or as any entity and then you can collaborate freely across the universities and across the community. And we typically people, aggregate. So examples, we've done this a program with this is one high school in New York, and this is on the right-hand side, a community college in New York, Mohawk Valley Community College. And then this was one of the universities, the Union Cooper, as an example here that was enabled by Chip Ignite. Another example is Purdue Stars team. They have, last summer, they started this program, 50 students, 12 teams, and this is how they used it. It was a great development by the team at Purdue, but it was a summer course. and then they added that. Now the IEEE has used this to activate the community, and they came to us as as customer actually to allow the community to provide to design based on a competition. And not only that, you'll find here links to the articles in the Solid State Circuit Society magazine, that publishes these designs and talks about them, allowing people to share as well in multiple layers, multiple channels. Now, taking Chip Ignite to the next level, coming to around the machine learning and generative AI. So as I mentioned, we're in the process of building another version of the reference design. So we call it Cheetah, and this is a temporary. This one here is an intermediate version. This is not the final version, but it will have more memory, more resources to be used around for an inference at the edge type of application, and it will look the same. You'll be able to develop your own accelerator. Not only that, we're adding to this process, in order for you to get your own accelerator on the edge, we're providing a complete flow that will take it to RTL. And so you would have the model tuned or optimized, and then that flow will be supported around the chip here, so they provide that easy path. There's two pictures on the right-hand side. They show generative AI in the middle. This is an advanced version we're actually looking at, and basically using LLMs with assistance with human direction or prompting. And I almost said it the other way around, but the correct representation here is that the designer actually directs or prompts the LLM after training. And here there's an agent that actually works with the LLM and with a human feedback. But the process makes it easy to someone to develop their own accelerator. So I call this for TinyML community. This is the first time you'll be able to build an accelerator on your own that is outside a large company, because you can do it right here. And so many people have already done that, and we have examples of that. Again, one of the interesting things here I mentioned, I stuck the AI aspect, stamped it on the development side. There's also on the other side, it would be like on the board side would be the Tiny or the ML side. But on the on here, the need for models that work around the EDA or the LLM enabled or aided design as it's currently done. There isn't. One of the things that I'm leading into is how the community is very helpful in that and how we can apply that. So there is an explosion of models that came out around the chip design. And in order to train these models, there's an interesting gap, which is data. So there's no public data except the open source data that was developed in such an activity like what happened with the Google program or a Chip Ignite program that has open source outcome. Large language models that are generic or general purpose, they're not sufficient because we don't know where the data is coming from, and they're not tailored or not activated. But the quality of the data, the contamination of IP, and it also takes a lot of compute to build them, to tune them and train them. Two are taken approaches. One is the siloed approach, which is what happened with large companies, and that's a great initiative. It's not. It's justifiable because it required they're protecting their own data and protecting their customers' data, because we wanted to train based on designs, and the designs are not proper, are not open, so it had to be this way. So the siloed approach, it's a captive data set and captive organization. The outcome is good training, but within the walls of large companies, and I don't want that to be perceived as any negative energy around the large. The large companies are setting a trend here, and that is very important. Now, eFabless, given that the advances that we put in the community, we decided that community approach is the right approach to serve the rest of the world that's not within the companies. So, and because we have open source data for the entire design, we wanted to kickstart something like this and seed it. The benefits are it's going to maximize the work outcome. It's very efficient in terms of getting to innovation, collective innovation, as well as the cost is not, because if you're doing special or domain specific models, the compute and the data assembly is much lower cost. And so what we did is that we launched challenges. We launched 3 last year, and the fourth is started in March and still active. The deadline is the day tape out is going to be June 3rd. But these challenges basically build something with generative AI as long as you publish everything open source, including the chats, and I'll show. So we started the initiative. We're training, to build the tools and engage the community, and then we provide the cost-effective approach to that, and it's open source. So the way we're doing it, again, because all the information available at the tape out from RTL all the way to the GDS, including reports, including silicon validation data, everything. And so you can have a rich data set across the plant. The people can use it to develop data, train existing models for foundation models, or create methodologies and agents around existing LLMs, or develop their new LLMs, and that can be used also for design improvement or design productivity. The example of how this happened in terms of the winners and for the challenge, the first team here and the first challenge was a team from NYU. And the example here is that shows that GitHub, all design data and prompts are open source. So you can go check out here's the chats that he used with what chat or assistant or AI assistant. So people can actually try to replicate, even though it's not deterministic, but also they can learn how someone would do that. So this would be the first data set. And it was so valuable that this was actually put as an example around, although it was talking about the larger companies, but that's a Wall Street Journal article, that the main picture on the article was this picture. This is the design that was developed by the winner team, and they actually demonstrated it, and it showed a sign of how a community can actually. We didn't do any of that, by the way. These are things that already happened by themselves. We were surprised to see it. And the last thing was the challenge here, and this is my last slide, is that since it's open, there's a call to action, a couple of things to join the challenge, because it's a keyword spotting accelerator using generative AI. And then also we are raising awareness and inviting sponsors to actually help enrich that open data set using the approach we're doing. And thank you.
Thank you, Mohamed. Thank you very much. And the question, I think its session is open for questions.
Mohamed, this is Jim Ang from Pacific Northwest National Lab.
Hi.
I'm very intrigued and interested to learn about all the activity eFabless has done. I'm wondering, you mentioned workforce development, so you probably have inputs into like the CHIPS Act program for workforce. Have you talked to the folks that are working on the National Semiconductor Technology Center, NSTC? Because it seems like the infrastructure you've set up could be very useful for hardware R&D to really help provide an option, an alternative for hardware prototyping that provides this intermediate step.
One of the characteristics of being a startup is to really, never stop knocking doors.
Okay.
And we're talking to the NSTC two sides, both sides, the government sides, the CHIPS office, as well
Yes.
as the NatCast, Deirdre
Deirdre
Hanford.
Hanford, yes.
Yes. And we are like, latest communication would have been like a few days ago to, to basically continue to show and also be positioned, and they are aware of us, and we're going to continue to keep that going.
That's excellent. And I did want to mention that at PNNL, we've developed some open source tools that also interface to open, and I'd love
Yeah,
to
I'm actually aware of that, and I would love to actually take it to a next level and do silicon, get it to silicon. So thank you for bringing it up.
All right. Well,
Thank
I'll
you.
look forward to further discussion. Thank you.
Sadas, you're mute. You're muted. At least we don't hear you. Okay. So maybe you'll figure out. We don't hear you, Sadas. So Ganesh, you're next, and Sadas will ask your discussion later.
Hi, Mohamed. Great talk.
It's
And
good to talk to you again.
Curious question: what fraction of your users are international?
So if well, actually, so I'm gonna use just the factual data here. There's one slide that there is a lot of the users are international, and like, let me just share the same slide again, just as in one sample. So here is the United States, about 25% of one of these shuttles. Okay.
Okay.
And then you have Canada. India is a good percentage. Okay. And then depending on, and then that changes a little bit per shuttle. We have these statistics, but significant number is international.
I believe about 30% of the entire community is domestic, is U.S.
Yeah.
And that gets you the exact number here in a moment. India is number 2, and then there's 50 countries in the world.
Thank you.
Okay. Sadas is back.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, it's something to do with the Microsoft Teams. So I really enjoyed the discussion, but I missed a little bit because I had some trouble listening to the audio here. You provide the expertise in the design or expertise in providing the tool set?
So we codify the expertise in the design and the tool set in one package. So the design is, so sometimes it's perceived as, okay, are we providing tools or providing this? We provide an infrastructure for design that has knowledge that's already been captured and tested. So this is a validated chip, okay? And we provide the tools, and these tools are available. And also we are open and working with, as I mentioned, a company like Synopsys, who is our strong partner, to include their tools to enable. So we are the one-stop chain, and we link in the chain what's needed for someone to get their own chip, including the designs, the IP, the tools, and affordable manufacturing. The whole cycle, we give them packaged parts with boards, literally, that they get.
So I'm just to give you the background. I mean, I'm associated with SLAC and Stanford. So, I mean, there are some kind of new types of ideas on design that's coming in. But you also showed, if I am not mistaken, analog and mixed signals to
Correct. Yeah.
Design. And because you have IoT as part of your
correct
target,
yes,
I think analog would make sense. And
so
those things.
Absolutely.
How would somebody initiate a process in this? Like just reach out to you and then start it?
That's one aspect, but one important thing, since you mentioned Slack, so the community, just the URL that I put at the end here, it will take you to be able to register into the Slack community, which is about almost 7,500 members now. But there's Analog Design is the largest. It has 1,500 people, and they talk about analog design in every way. the models, DRC, and then we have the Chipalooza challenge. It's called Chipalooza, and this is actually very interesting because it is. And I apologize if I just if you go to the challenge webpage, so it is an analog design challenge, but one important aspect of it is we publish the list of items that to be designed, and for every one of them, we published a specification, like almost a miniature data sheet. And what you see here is actually the community, designs that have finished the last stage, which was schematic. And so it is actually, people have been doing analog designs with it, and this is actually a proof in terms of engagement. And it is the largest. So the first, out of the 7,500, there is one, the process node group is the highest, and then the analog is the second.
Just as a clarification, we are not SLAC with the K.
Yeah.
This is SLAC National Laboratory Association.
Oh, actually, I apologize. So that's my ignorance. So thank you.
I appreciate
and I was like,
that.
trying to create a connection. So
yeah.
So well, it would be good. Do reach out to Mohamed. I think maybe the underlying question is about all that the community does and what they can do, right? So I'll just give an example. That whole Gen AI challenge, we started out honestly just thinking this would be a cool way to get a bunch of designs. It turned into an incredibly robust discussion around the methods to make the Gen AI work. So the community kind of goes in different directions, and it is a mixture of chip people, chip users, EDA people. It's all over the map. So I would say maybe go offline and solved.
So the last thing is the cost associated with that. Like, do people go for some joint funding proposals, or how do they engage with you, or is it all over the map? Because you are also emphasizing open source on one side, but at the other extreme, you must have a business model.
So Mike, do you want to take this or?
Yeah, sure. So right now the business model is ultimately we let people go through the whole design process, use the open source tools or any resources the community. Ultimately, though, they're getting to silicon, right? And so the really tricky part is that last mile. How can you in this chaotic community let a whole bunch of people interface with foundries who don't want to interface with a chaotic community, right? And so hence this whole chip ignite process. And so when we deliver silicon to people, we put it on a board and we charge them. When they go to volume, which is the first customers are now doing, they buy silicon from us. So we become effectively a supply chain enabler as that develops. You will see a lot more robust revenue sharing models that start to develop, including around IP, but that's where we are.
But today that baseline, the $10,000 gets you the first 100 parts. What's good about this, if you wanted 1,000, you pay 20,000. If you wanted 10,000, you pay 130,000. So it's ready to go up in a production value. So our business model is to provide for those who use that platform. We provide them with parts for their volume.
Yeah, I will talk to Victor, and maybe there are a few ideas that we will.
Yeah,
we do have the funding sources that come from this. I have to say this is something that's amazingly underserved, to be honest with you, in this country, because we've knocked like thousands of universities around the world, doors, and the main thing is that where do I get that money? It's either people gets it from their university, somebody gets it from a sponsorship, like Stanford's getting from Apple, or they attach it different ways. People are coming up with creative ways to do that. STARS is coming from an industry funding as well, like the STARS program from Purdue. And then we added this $300 feature, so to reduce the barrier significantly, which has been highly adopted by professionals as well as actual hobbyists.
We also did our very first crowd-funded project around people coming together to create a new architecture. So there's a lot of it. Yeah, again, it's a fun topic when you get the community models going into hardware.
But the open
Yes.
source is a catalyst, is a lubricant versus a just open and free.
Yeah. Thanks, Mohammed
Okay.
and Mike, for the
Thank you.
clarification.
Let us move to the next question. Kanat.
No, I think Ganesh was there before I turned on my page. Maybe Ganesh.
Oh, either way.
Okay, so I'll ask a question then. So Mohammed, a couple of quick questions. I see that your list has grown considerably since I saw the last presentation, which is really, really great. Thank you for the presentation. The question I have is, do you offer other packaging options other than the standard one that you have for the open source community?
So we actually have two paths, but we resorted to one of them because of the cycle time. So we had CSP support. That's actually the first round of packaging we ever did when we continued to do for the projects, for example, we did with Google. It was CSP based. The issue that we had is that the cycle time was by itself for the packaging 6 to 8 weeks. And that was not technology driven. It's a supply chain or lead time we decided to go with this packaging option because we can get it quickly.
Okay. The second question that I have is, is there a DRAM option on the board that you actually charge for? Or the DRAM sockets?
DRAM socket. So okay. So in this generation of the product, this is a 130 nanometer. Okay, and it's targeted towards call it the industrial microcontroller type of applications. We are working with our partners, Global Foundries, on the high end of that, basically replicating this approach for a low power, high performance node in their portfolio. And in that case, we will provide options like these because it's actually we don't want to limit the processor, so we're very well aware of that. I used to work at Texas Instruments on the OMAP team, responsible for a lot of things there. But memory integration is in our path, but not on this one. Here you can integrate a flash. You have a flash on the board.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. The next question is John. John, good enough?
Hey, Mohammed. Yeah, good to see the progress. Nice to see where things are going. I guess my question is, where do you see this going? I think Kanad's last question was kind of one evolutionary vector there, which is microcontroller today, slightly more capable application processor tomorrow. I'm also interested if you take this less from a kind of a product perspective and more from the kind of technology platform you can put in, if you think about not AMS, but potentially, let's say, mixed photonics or going towards, heterogeneous integration and chiplet stuff. Do you, I guess,
yes.
What's the thing, and where are the big barriers though? Because it gets hard. I mean, doing the microcontroller version, yeah, great. Replicating that even at the next thing of more of an application processor, would you stretch out that technology thing? Where do you think the barriers are going to end up being?
So first of all, some of our customers already do use our platform in a way with some processing difference to interface with some sensors. Okay, the photonics aspect. The main thing is that, so as we started, we wanted to start to get the wheel fly and the flywheel work. Okay, and when you get that running, now we showed progress. So now we're getting the specialized technologies like our partner Skywater, for example, they have a variety of technologies around like photonics MEMS, and so these. We're expanding that by looking into what can we add, even though it's not open source, okay, to that. So we're going there, The one thing I'll say is that you will not find us doing every technology for every process, like as if we're a foundry or an EDA company, or we come from the top. What's the market?
Yeah.
What's the need? And if you're working with a product company, they actually don't care about your process or your area. They care about the features and the process to the extent it matters for the performance. So they care about the performance and the cost, right? And the form factor, maybe. But when you work with the product companies, the formula changes. But again, to the extent that the process is needed to meet certain features of the chip, you wouldn't need an advanced process. So we would pick or a process. So that's why we're going to be multimodal rather than white noise or white spectrum.
I'm more interested on the kind of, if you like, the design automation and pathway thing. If you go beyond, let's just say, and fine, I get the product feature match thing. If I want to bring more plural technology in, even at a low cost, even at a low cost product orientation, where effectively the design automation supply chain barrier is going to end up being if you follow the evolution?
Well, we've looked at that just multiple ways. There's design automation. There's some open source activities in that are working on the electromagnetics, for example, and field solvers and things like that. Now, our goal is to solve the problem with a reduced barrier to access. So, working with partners like the commercial partners of Synopsys, Ansys, we're working with them to provide, even though it's not open source, would be accessible to within the boundaries or around the skirt of ChipIgnite.
Interesting.
Let me try and take a cut at your question, John. So in terms of the people innovating and using a lot of this stuff we have collaboratively, the barriers are de minimis, right? So the breakthrough that made all this come together was getting the path to the manufacturing so people were actually able to share the results. And that comes around standardization. So what we've perfected, because you have this idea of putting 40 of these things on a shuttle so the foundry doesn't have to manage 40 separate people. The adding more people to it is not a problem, right? Because we keep taking these things and we parsing them smaller and smaller. That's the tiny tape out. What you need, though, is enough interested people around it that you could start to fill on a regular basis these manufacturing shuttles, because that's the fixed cost, right? So if you created this infrastructure around something that had only a limited number of people participating, then that fixed cost becomes the gate. So you just need to get enough fellow travelers. Basically, if you want to think about it crudely, it's a matter of money in versus other way to do it. But if you can get 40 projects every 6 months, you probably have a market that can go addressed.
Thanks.
Okay,
that's good.
Thank you. Great. The last question, Zoran.
Thanks, Victor. Mohamed, hello. All things about ecosystem, IP blocks, design methodology, well understood, and so on. I'll just welcome your initial thoughts on two aspects. One is security, which is, constant concerns. Is there something that is through the open source community injected in this and so on? And the second thing is, how do you see potential liabilities, right? If it goes into the products that are somewhere in sensitive areas of the field that are failing, right? Usually there is sort of, forensic things, why did product fail? So just your initial thoughts on those two topics.
So on the security aspect, so we are a trailblazer. So we are figuring things out. Now on the security specifically, okay? There's a front on evaluate. There are companies and tools that actually evaluate the RTL on the digital side, evaluate the vulnerabilities to screen. So that's one aspect. Several of these companies, and we are actually, I'm already aligned to have them attached to our ChipIgnite for the commercial applications. The second part is AI, so related generative AI. So we funded a competition about generating Trojans with generative AI, and that generated the other side is that how do we use generative AI to counteract that? It's in progress. What I can say is that we're working with the people, security people, like from NYU or Texas A&M, and to shape that. The answer is not bulletproof yet. Okay. And now on the open source in general, like if I go to the liability aspect, there are two sides of the liability. One is infringing. If, let's say somebody designed something and it turned out to be somebody else's thing, or it's bad, it fails. Okay. So for example, the analog IP that we're doing in the analog challenge, they're actually stage gated by reviews we provided. So we raised the bar. They have to pass the test benches with the thoroughness of a commercial standard. Okay. In terms of and we have a design review at every stage for the people who did that. Why do we do that? Because that's not a scalable process. We wanted to develop a process where people can adopt and actually have an automation to reduce that risk. I will say that because we will, and anybody that's expecting a bulletproof, no one has a bulletproof.
Sure.
We are taking a risk, and that has served us very well. Okay. And we'll continue. We think that risk today is lower than the value that we get as a community by sharing. However, on the quality side, when you get a chip from our system, it is validated and it's commercially validated. So you're not going to get a chip that is not so.
Today we've been managing a lot of that quality control. As this explodes, you're going to see it move to more and more of the community doing that around. And the key that we have to provide is the methodologies to get started that people can accept as acceptable, right?